I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you've had a good week. And I hope you enjoyed last week's episode, which was with the amazing Marion Stewart. It's been a really popular episode, that one, all about how to manage your menopause and perimenopause naturally. So if you haven't had a listen, I really encourage you to go and listen to that one, because Marion really is a pioneer in this menopause space and has so many good tips and so many words of wisdom to offer. So the reason I'm slightly husky today is because last weekend I went to an amazing wedding in the Czech Republic, in Prague. Our old au pair, Bara, and actually she's more than an au pair, she's a friend. She's part of the family now. But she got married to a lovely Englishman and we went out to celebrate with her. And Bara came over to the UK 9 years ago, and she didn't really have much English, and she came and took a complete chance on us. And it was when I was working as a primary school teacher. My husband was working away a lot, and I really needed someone to help with that sort of wraparound care, you know, that part in the morning to helping to take the kids to school and pick them up from school. And Bara was an absolute lifesaver and really just embraced life here. She's an amazing hockey player. She used to play for the Czech Republic. So joined the hockey club here in Brighton and Hove. She met a lovely man. She made loads of friends. And it was just wonderful to go over to Prague and see where she lives and to celebrate with her and her family and all of her friends. And my goodness, they threw a good party, hence the huskiness in my voice today. It was just wonderful. I don't know about you, I always cry in weddings. They always get me going. I cried a lot in this one, particularly as her parents kept calling me and my husband her English parents, and we're just so grateful. So yeah, it was wonderful. Anyway, on to this week's podcast. This week, I speak to the wonderful Hillary Baggett. Now, this is a great episode. It's an emotional one, actually, this one, because in late 2020, after the lowest of lows and so many hormonal fluctuations that nearly ended both Hillary's marriage and also her life, which Hillary talks about in this episode, Hillary sought eventually professional help. So she hired a life and health coach, she had therapy, and then in July 2021, she actually had a total hysterectomy and 4-way reconstructive surgery. And while on the path to recovery, Hillary realised there were millions of other women who, like her, needed a place to feel safe and needed to feel supported. So now she's back to full health. She's started her own business and a podcast, and it's all about bringing women together for support, for collaborations, and she helps women have vital conversations on midlife transitions, on relationships, and on identity challenges, which we all know come with this midlife transition. Hillary is so honest and raw in this conversation, and I know that it's going to really help anyone who is experiencing or has experienced anything similar. So without further ado, I'm so delighted to welcome you to the lovely Hillary Baggett. So hi Hillary, it's so lovely to have you on the Positive Perimenopause podcast. I came across you recently. We're both part of the Perimenopause Hub, who I've interviewed Emily Barclay from, a few members actually I've spoken to on the podcast. And I came across you at Perifest, and I watched your presentation, and I was so taken by your energy and your zest for life that I thought I had to have you on the podcast. Now, I know that you have had a roller coaster ride, to say the least, of a perimenopause experience. So I wonder a really good place to start might be if you could share with us a little bit about how it all started and when you became aware that you were actually in perimenopause.
Well, first, thank you for having me. I am just so thrilled to be able to talk about it, because the whole goal is to let women know that there's hope out there. And after people hear my story, hopefully they'll feel a lot better about theirs. Yeah, mine really started, and Emily Barclay and Perimenopause Hub was a huge part of my journey, because I honestly didn't know what was happening to me. I was struggling with the most severe mood swings, the most severe physical symptoms. I don't know if we're allowed to say, I was bleeding 2 weeks out of every 22 days. And so I thought, I just need to deal with this. This sucks. And it's really, really hard. And I was having difficulties with my children, with my husband. I thought we were going to get a divorce. And one day we were on a hike and I was standing over this cliff, and I thought, what if I just say goodbye and take a step? And wouldn't that just be easier? And I kind of snapped out of it to say, I know I need help, because this is not who I am. Something's going on that's beyond me. And it was truly scary and terrifying. And I went to the first doctor and they said, oh, you just have some anxiety. Here, let's take this pill. And I said, this is more than anxiety. I felt anxiety before. This feels much bigger. So I went to a different doctor, and that's really the secret. When you don't get the answer from your first practitioner that's giving you the support, you need to find someone else. And so I went to this doctor, and we were on a virtual call, and she said, Hillary, look at me. I need your assurance that you're not going to harm yourself. I need you to get to this therapist that deals especially with women in midlife. And in fact, she's a woman in midlife. She's already gone through it. She is going to know what you're going through and be compassionate. Then I need you to get to a gynecologist, because you can't just go to a family practitioner through perimenopause. You need to go to somebody that really understands the complexity of what's going on with your hormones physically, and all the symptoms I had, Polly. Wow. I had no idea how much was going on in there, and I just wasn't aware. So I had a pretty complicated situation. It wasn't just that there was a reason that I was bleeding excessively and for that long. I had a special condition called adenomyosis. And that means I had not just a thickening of the tissue, different from endometriosis, but then I had a very thick and heavy uterus. Maybe a little too much information. You can take that out if you need. But
anything goes here. It's all fine.
But then my uterus had also prolapsed. So I thought, oh, well, there's physical therapy for that. And I'm an occupational therapist professionally. So I thought, oh, well, I could probably just go to somebody. Well, we did the internal ultrasound. We saw that one of my ovaries looked suspicious. We saw that there were just so many factors going on. And then the doctor said, you realize you've had a lot of damage from childbirth. And I said, well, I thought something had gone on when I gave birth to my now 18-year-old. And they said, no, you've really had significant damage. This is pulled, this is stretched, this is fallen. She said, I can offer to do a few procedures, but it's a lot to do. And I originally just thought I was going in for either to get an IUD Mirena put in to kind of slow down the periods, or get an ablation because I had a sibling that was effective for. And the doctor said, Hillary, you can choose anything you want. I'm never going to pressure a patient to make a choice to do more than they want. She said, here are the options. And I said, if this was you, what would you tell, or this was your sister, or this was your daughter, what would you tell her to do? And it's kind of hard to talk about.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah. And it wasn't until about 3 weeks after the surgery that I was able to read all my post-operative notes and really understand the kind of the severity and what a major surgery it was. So she did a hysterectomy. She took out the uterus, the cervix, the fallopian tube. She had to take one of the ovaries. She left the second ovary in hopes that I wouldn't go into medical menopause. And she had to reconstruct everything, anteriorly, posteriorly, and repair the episiotomy that I had had when I had given birth as well. So it was 10 weeks of stillness, which is the hardest thing for me as someone who is very active and likes to be energetic. And I also had to ask for help and receive help. So the surgery went very well, and I was really grateful to get that help. Well, then what we didn't realize is that 10 weeks post-op, I had gone into surgical menopause. So my hormones absolutely crashed. And I suddenly was feeling exhausted again and anxious. And right after surgery, I felt like I had the best energy that I had had in years. And I was able to put the pieces together and see that, wait a minute, I was going through perimenopause. That's what those symptoms were. That's what this happened when everything would kind of gush through everything. And I remember being in the middle of church and having a sensation that I'd never felt before. And I thought, could I have been pregnant and didn't know it and had a miscarriage? And I thought, gosh, I hope not at my age as I approach 52.
Yeah.
Although I was still in my 40s, but still having grown children already, I was hopeful to not have that.
Yep. I mean, how long hysterectomy with all those terrible symptoms was that going on for?
Well, that's such a good question, because I think it might be that it was a good 3 to 5 years, right, and that I just kind of discounted them because I am a woman, and that's what we've been trained to do, is to discount our symptoms. I remember asking my older sister, who's 4 years above me, and she said, oh, it was not a big deal. I just went in and got an ablation and that fixed everything. Well, then I didn't realize she had 3 cesareans and I had 2 vaginal births. Mm-hmm. So that's a very different system and process and pressure on the vaginal canal and the uterus and everything. So
thank you so much for sharing all of that, Hillary. I know I could see how much pain and how much you must have gone through at that time, but also just to relive it must be really difficult. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. And isn't it I've got lots of questions to ask you from that, actually. I mean, the first thing which has kind of popped up and sprung up to me straight away was, before you had your hysterectomy, you said, I just felt like I had to deal with it. I just thought, oh, this sucks. This is just what we women have to do. As you just said, you thought it was going on for 3 to 5 years. And yet you just felt, I just have to put up with this. There was no point where you were like, okay, well, maybe things aren't quite right. I need to sort it out. This is what I really feel very passionate that we've got to get women to understand that these things aren't normal. These symptoms aren't normal. The fact that you were standing on a ledge thinking very easily that you might be able to you might step off it is far from okay.
Right.
So when you look back, what do you think could have been done, or what awareness could you have had, or what, if you went back to that self again, what would you say to her? What could she have done to sort of stop it getting so bad? A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
Well, I'm someone who asks a lot of questions, and I persevere. And so I had gone to my providers, although I lived in Germany at the time. And there just are not these conversations about what the symptoms are, what's normal and what's not. And I thought, do I need to go to a gynecologist? And the family practitioner was like, no, you're fine. I've done your annual pap smear, and there's no cancerous cells in there. And I thought, there's so much more to quality life in midlife than having cancer or not, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly that more women need to have these conversations so that other women know, wait a minute, these are my symptoms. Here's where I go. And in America, we have the obstetrician who's also the gynecologist. However, not every gynecologist delivers babies. And that's how I found my surgeon. She said, I've delivered babies and I love babies. But that's not where my passion is. My passion is for helping women feel that they can get their strength back. I couldn't even walk down a mountain or a hill or the stairs without feeling like I was going to fall. So that's one of those symptoms that people don't realize, that I'm an avid hiker and I got my walking sticks, and my kids would laugh at me. They were like, Mom, you're like a grandma and you need your canes, to get down. I said, gosh, I really feel like I'm going to fall. Well, when I look back, Polly, I remember having a swim coach, and I think I wasn't even 40 yet. And she said, let's do some training, lift up your legs, let's work on some core. And I said, I think something's not attached in there.
Right. So you kind of had a feeling that things weren't as they should be.
Right. And it's just getting to the right person to say,
yeah.
I remember saying to my trainer after I gave birth to my son, because I thought I need some help getting back to physical health and fitness and feeling strong again. And I said, it feels like something's not connected. And, the trainer's not the person you need to talk to. You need to go back to a gynecologist. And the reason we were overseas is we're a military family. And in the military life, I know, at least in America, but I've met some British military people as well, you move around a lot. And so you don't necessarily have that consistent care. And we would move not just from state to state in the US, but we lived in Japan, we moved to Germany. And finding healthcare and language barriers and all of that sometimes is a real challenge for women. So finding your voice to be able to speak up for yourself. And if you hear healthcare professionals that also don't know what's going on with their body, that's really kind of permission for you to say, wait a minute, I need to go to somebody who knows somebody that's going to have the answers to help me so I can feel far better than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. After you had your hysterectomy and you said you were then thrown into full-blown menopause because you had that, presumably that's because you had your ovaries, well, one of your ovaries removed, but it obviously triggered it all. So what were you given the support then to enable you to kind of cope with those symptoms? What symptoms did you have? What happened to you when you went into that full-blown menopause?
Yeah, well, I noticed that the dryness of my body in all areas was significant. And then my energy level, I was just on the couch all day in my command center, and I had my food. Everything just took so much energy. I wasn't understanding what my family was saying. And I reached out to my surgeon and we just messaged, and I said, Doc, I think I need to talk about some hormones. And she said, well, we've got to go through this whole process. We've got to do your blood work. Well, she apologized. She said, I'm so sorry. We've got to get you hormones. The other ovary failed. Usually the other ovary can last alone up to a year, maybe to 4 years, depending on the person and their age and condition. But this poor little ovary just couldn't make it. So we started with the conservative. She said, well, should we start with maybe a pill, a low dose, kind of like birth control pill? We tried that and it just was not effective. And you've got to do these things for weeks. And then next it was time for the patch. And I had the allergic reaction on my skin. I just couldn't do it. And she said, Hillary, if you could see me right now, I've got red patches all over my backside. I said, but I can't live with that. It's so irritating. It was a raised lump that was itchy. It felt like my skin was on fire. And we women going through peri and menopause know what your skin on fire feels like. It's not pleasant. So then we switched to the gel. Then I had a reaction to the gel. And I had to walk around the house, honestly, like for 30 minutes for that to fully absorb into my thighs, which does not bode well when you have a teenage son around the house. And then we had to finally switch to compounded hormones. And we started just with the estrogen. She said, well, you don't need progesterone because you don't have a uterus anymore. And progesterone helps protect the uterus from cancer if you have an estrogen dominant situation. Well, then we moved up. Yes, you do need progesterone because you're not sleeping well. Okay. Well, then my libido was down, no sex drive at all. And she said, okay, now we're going to try the next formula, and we're going to get the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone in this little yummy pill that I said, could you add a little more orange flavor to that? Because it really tasted like powder. And it dissolved under the tongue. So I was fortunate. My provider did listen to me. She did everything she could. And she sent me to pelvic floor physical therapy after all of this to get the strengthening, to get the trauma basically from not just the procedure, but from the childbirth out of the tissues. So I can't speak highly enough about all of them.
And presumably that final combination did the job.
Well, the thing about hormones is that you have to keep checking, because as the body changes, things keep evolving. And we had everything in one pill, the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but then I still wasn't having the same energy and libido. And the doctor said, I want to increase your testosterone, but what you might find is that you still have fluctuations through the month. So once you tune into your body, we're going to get the separate testosterone with the estrogen and progesterone in its own sublingual, the melt away that goes under your tongue, which was quite big, honestly. Like it would be the size here in the US, I think it would be a 10p for the UK, but it's about the size of a dime for us as well. Or is the 10p the large one? I was trying to remember.
So at any point along this journey, seeing all these doctors, did anyone ever talk to you about sort of diet and how food might be able to help to kind of get your hormones back on track? What did they give you any other advice? I'm just very curious.
Well, in fact, I had bought a book by an author in the UK before that, and I had worked with a health wellness life coach as well leading up to it. And as soon as the doctor said, you need a hysterectomy and reconstruction, I said, okay, coach, I'm in. What do we need to do? Because I know I needed to change my relationship with food. And I had already been eliminating things. I knew what my triggers were, if I had processed foods, too much sugars, alcohol, caffeine, soda, all of these things were activating the worst of the symptoms for sure.
So I've been doing lots of reading recently and looking at research about phytoestrogens, soy, tempeh, which can mimic our own body estrogen. So for those who can't for some reason take hormones or don't want to, they're a brilliant way to actually help us to sort of feel more balanced and kind of help our cells and our body feel like it's getting the estrogen we need. So I don't know if you experimented with any of that as well.
Oh, I do. And in fact, I think the book by the UK author, I think her name is Marion Stewart, and she has a little phyto sprinkle recipe.
Do you know, I've got her on the podcast actually coming up. So yes. I'm speaking to her this afternoon, funny enough. So yes. Yeah, she's great.
That this American found her book while she was living in Germany, and I started trying to make some of the recipes, and so good on her. I thought she was a pioneer for the way to help women with the symptoms of perimenopause and postmenopause, for sure.
She's great. I really, really love everything that she's done. And I love the fact that everything she's done is really backed in medical research as well. So, which makes 100%. It really reassuring. Anyway, so you got back to, you kind of got back. How long did it take for you to get back to really feeling like yourself again? Because it sounds like quite a good few years since you were sort of standing on that ledge, looking over to actually getting to the point where actually you feel like you're back to yourself again. How long did that take?
Yeah, well, it's just this week has been 1 year since my surgery. Okay. And it was only about 6 months before that I was truly standing on that ledge. And I can say I made all the right choices. I spoke up for myself and I sought help, and I had to really invest in finding the right coaches and resources and therapists, because we do pay copays here in America. When you go to see a therapist, you've got to pay a certain amount up front, and then insurance kicks in for the rest. And taking that time for the psychotherapy, for the marriage therapy, different from the psychotherapy, because one-on-one therapy is not the same as marriage therapy. And what I realized through all of it was that I thought I was losing my mind, but there are women who really care. And now I was able to ski in in the winter. So probably March, I was able to report to my doctor. I skied all the way down the hill and I felt really good. I'm able to go on hikes. There's no restrictions. I don't feel like I'm going to fall down the stairs when I walk down. Although I will say, coming up on the year, I noticed that my body felt a little differently. So I reached back out to my physical therapist to make an appointment, because there are things that change with our bodies all the time. So sometimes we just need to keep reaching back out for help. It's not a once and done.
Yeah. And how did it affect you more psychologically? Because obviously losing your uterus is a big deal. And I think almost was there some sort of grieving kind of process with that? Because although you said you didn't want to have any more children, it's still very much part of you, and it does signify that whole part of your life.
Absolutely. And luckily, the day before surgery, I went to one of my craniosacral therapy providers, and she said, we're going to do a little ceremony, Hillary. We're going to thank your body, and we're going to thank your uterus for carrying those children. And we're going to thank the other parts that the doctor has to remove for your physical and mental well-being. And we're going to make space for what's coming next in your life. And it was a beautiful process, the tears that came out of my body. And it was really acknowledging my body for the gifts that it had given and being able to be grateful. And a few weeks after surgery, my son was driving my daughter to the airport. And I get all emotional talking about it right now. I was standing in the garage as my son was driving my daughter. And I felt this ache in my body of gratitude, of that my body was able to carry and give birth to these children. And it did its job. And now they are independent and they can do what they need. And it was this really beautiful moment. And even my son noticed that I was crying, and he stopped the car. He said, wait, Mom's crying. Let's give her a minute. And they rolled down the window and they just said, Mom, this is the whole point, to raise us and let us go. And so that was kind of a beautiful gratitude story.
I've got tears as well. My goodness, it really is. And I do know, just as you were saying that, I just think, gosh, if more of us, even if we haven't had a hysterectomy, we've still got our uterus, I feel like this midlife sort of perimenopause, menopause process for so many of us is that sort of, it's an opportunity to really be very grateful for everything that has been, and actually an opportunity to really reflect, but also to feel excited about all the new beginnings which we're moving into, and actually to have that sort of little ceremony to really kind of feel into that would be such a lovely, lovely thing to do, actually, because I think part of what's so difficult about perimenopause and menopause and that next stage for so many of us is it's that recognition that we're getting older, and that those sort of childbearing years, whether you've had children or not had children, but they're gone, and our bodies have obviously they've served that purpose, and that is, I think that's something to be recognized. It really is something to be recognized and celebrated. Yet how amazing is it that we now can move on and actually, rather than sort of feel like we're now slightly redundant and we don't have a purpose anymore, actually celebrate the fact that we don't have that, and actually we can now go on and do amazing things. And which brings me on nicely to what you're doing now, because the impact that this whole experience has had on your life has been quite phenomenal, really, hasn't it, Hillary?
Talk about a midlife, not crisis, but pivot, and really kind of a rebirthing of myself. And part of my healing journey with my physical therapists and my craniosacral therapy providers was truly discovering what is my purpose in life. And it is to reach out, to connect, collaborate, and co-create with other women to build this whole community where we're looking out for each other, where we're encouraging each other. My area happens to usually be health and wellness because that's my professional background, but when I meet women, I just want them to know you're not alone going through this. And your symptoms might not be like mine, but we share the experience of going through and being female and experiencing challenges and loss and hormones. And if every woman could know there's something more for me. So I suddenly became an entrepreneur, which I never felt comfortable even saying that. But really, when I see the heart and passion for other women who want to nurture other women through their midlife experience, I just light up and am so energized. So I learned to podcast. I learned to build a website and build a membership community. I've learned to do all of these things, to be a speaker with the Perimenopause Hub, to reach out in service, to really want to help women. And I think people get to know us and trust us and feel safe when we are able to be vulnerable and share our tough stories. I think someone could look at a post on social media and say, look at the perfect life she's got. Everything comes easily for her. And really the hope and the light is shed and shared when we say, you know what, I've been through some really hard things, but if you dig deep into self-care, and I even called it extreme self-care last year, and someone said, what does that mean? I said, it means I say no to everything and everyone else, and I say yes to myself, and I am not going to stop asking for help and receiving the help I need until I feel like I have what I need so that I am working out of an abundant overflow to share with others.
I love it. And that yet that is what so many women find so difficult to do, that we're so ingrained in this kind of feeling that we have to do everything for everyone. We have to be busy. And unless we're busy and doing everything for everyone, then, you know, we're not fulfilling our role. But this has got to stop, because particularly at this stage of life, it's not possible. And when we're having hormonal changes, we have got to start to listen to our body and slow down, because the stress of life is causing it. It really is making it so much worse. And we have got to really slow down and take good care of themselves, and for women to realize that self-care is actually, it's not something which is just a bit flimsy and faffy. It's actually something which we all need to do. So how did you get into that mindset? How did you get to that place? I'm sure it wasn't always like that for you, of putting yourself first.
You're absolutely right. I think we as women are certainly trained to care for others, and that to give is better than to receive. And, oh, this is just what a mother does, or this is perhaps what a wife or a partner does. And I think those are just kind of societal, I'll go ahead and say, lies that we're told. And once we realize, wait, our body is actually talking to us and giving us these messages and signals. Pain is communication from the body. And while we want to avoid pain, if we don't address it and let it to come out, whether it's physical or emotional or mental or spiritual, then it just kind of gets stuck in there, and it keeps us from being who we were meant to be. And I think it's so important for women to say, hey, what's going to be your point? And my big breaking point was the doctor saying, surgery is the only solution. And I knew I didn't want to keep the extra 10 pounds on me before weight. So I thought, this is what it is. This is decision time. I have a choice, and I have a choice to be for me. And I have a choice to give myself, especially pre-op, to do everything I possibly can to get my body and my mind in the best shape possible. And my advice would be, though, and I told my doctor this afterwards, because I didn't get pelvic floor physical therapy before, but I would say to every woman listening that if you have a surgery scheduled, please find a certified physical therapist that has pelvic floor experience, so they can do the evaluation before the surgery to know what is happening to your body. And because then post-operatively, when they're allowed to start treating you, which sometimes is 10 weeks post with everything I had going on, then they can know what's happening. I had so much trauma and so much stuff stuck in my body. My awesome physical therapy team, they let out so much, and I've got so many stories about that as well. I took a journal and I wrote and I dictated after every session. So I think giving ourselves permission to give everything that our bodies and our minds needs, now not wants, because I think that's different. Because I would like to have a glazed donut, but that's not the same as that my body needs rest. My body needs to slow down. And that was a lot of mental work. So I'd say that was probably my biggest growth, was my mindset on who I am as a person. And it's not the roles I fulfill and the people that I take care of in my home. I mean, I love my husband and my children. We're still working through everything. But I think there's hope out there. And I think women now get the permission to say yes to ourselves. Even my health and life coach, Sherry Beery, would say the same thing. Even one of the books, I interviewed someone a week post-op because I felt that good after having everything removed. And I interviewed an amazing woman, Cheryl Johns, and she wrote The 7 Transforming Gifts of Menopause. And I thought, wait a minute, menopause can be a gift? And there's 7 of them in there? I cried through the whole book. I took notes. I interviewed her. I loved it. There's so much hope. There's so much this uprising of women that want to help and support and offer solutions, because we are not cookie cutter women. And I'm grateful for that. No one looks the same. No one feels the same. And together, though, we make up this amazing world.
Absolutely. It's a choice, isn't it? It's how we perceive it. We can look at menopause and think of it as something horrendous and really depressing, or we can actually look at it as an opportunity to rediscover who we are. And I think because many of us have been mothers and wives and career or what, with this person to everybody, and sometimes we really lose who we truly are. So for me, I know personally, it has been an amazing opportunity to rediscover who I truly am, what my essence is, and allow that to really flourish. And I think that's what's amazing about it and so exciting for so many. And that's really where I really hope that many women can get to. But obviously the physical symptoms can be really debilitating. I'm not taking away from that. So we need to get on top of those, but alongside that, to actually really look inside and rediscover who you are is just quite amazing.
100%. I think every woman has a true purpose, and for some of us, we call it our mission in life. And yours is out there waiting for you, and you might need some help in discovering what your great purpose or mission is. And, you know, there are women here, whether it's in the Perimenopause Hub, whether it's in Community Bloom or the Women's Midlife Network, there is a place for you to find where your calling is in life. And it's okay to take some time to do that. Yeah. And I would hope, sorry, back to your point on nutrition, because certainly we see what we've been told about what to eat and not eat and fast food. And certainly you can look at the majority of people in, well, I don't want to just say in America, because there are people that are overweight and obese in many countries in the world. However, I would ask the question of why are we doing that to ourselves? Because it's actually not serving our bodies or our minds, and making the choice of, yes, you could have all these things. However, you might feel even better and more in control of all of these symptoms if you were able to get food that tastes good, was easy to prepare. So just some encouragement out there of that we don't have to struggle with this. And with the easy access of food, there are amazing resources and dietitians and nutritionists that want you to feel your best life. And it's not as hard as we think.
It's not. And as you say, support is everywhere, and people are out there. There are hundreds of people out there, including people like us, who are there to support women through this. And because it can be difficult on your own, and particularly when you're feeling isolated and lonely, going through perimenopause, that whole community aspect becomes ever so more important. And that is your superpower, as you call it. So I wonder, has that always been something you've had, or is it something you've rediscovered more recently, or has it been because of your experience through perimenopause?
Well, I guess looking back, I always have liked to encourage people. And now, again, kind of like recognizing peri symptoms in hindsight, it's much easier to see. But it was truly going through this process of perimenopause and the surgery that I was able to realize, wait a minute, this is a gift, to be able to see the gifts that other people have and to encourage them in those gifts. And I've been so fortunate to speak to women, and I always feel like after someone's given me the gift of their time, sometimes I call it like a download that will come in. And I said, well, are you in a place to receive some encouragement of what I'm seeing in you? Because I think we often don't see our own sparks and light and gifts and talents that we can share with the world. So it's been something I'm cultivating more post-surgery.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, Hillary, it's been really lovely to talk to you. I always finish this podcast by asking my guests if they could give one practical, actionable tip they could give the listeners to take away, which they could put into practice today. What would it be?
I would say you are worth it. You have value. You have a voice. And understanding that your value is not in what you do for other people or the roles that you play. And if we as women could understand and receive that I have this worth, and I imagine it's like you've been filled up with gold or silver or whatever, precious metal is precious, or filled up with diamonds. And you can realize that you have all of these gifts inside you that have value, and you maybe just have not unlocked them to release them to the world. I think that would be my takeaway. So to say, if you could say to yourself, looking in the mirror, I am worthy, and I have value, and I am loved.
That's so lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Hillary. If any women would love to find out more about you, they would love to find more about Community Bloom, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about Community Bloom before we finish, and just tell people where they could find it if they're interested.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I'm just in the middle of the launch, and so it feels exciting and nerve-wracking, and I'm trying to allow space for both of those emotions at the same time. And I think we as women need to say yes, and yes, I'm feeling this, and I'm also feeling that. So yes, I had this vision to really, as I said, connect and collaborate and co-create. And starting out now just with these female entrepreneurs, healthcare practitioners, coaches, and creative artists and writers who just have a heart to serve midlife women. And so that's really the mission of bringing women together, because when we have these conversations like we are right now, we feel so seen and heard and understood on almost a spiritual level, like our souls are talking and connecting. And I think I feel energized when I'm around women who get me and understand what I've been going through, and it might not be exactly the same. So yes, they can certainly find us at www.communitybloom.org. And I've got a private membership site that's Community2Bloom with the number 2 in there, .org. And so just figuring out what works for women and how do we best serve and support women so that we can all feel so encouraged and energized going through this life transition, because we're writing a new chapter and maybe even a new book for our life and what's next.
Yeah, there's so much more to come if you think about it. We're only really halfway through. So yes, lots more to come. Thank you again, Hillary. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably your story. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Polly. It's been fun. I don't mind crying with people because it's just the authentic emotions coming out. So I appreciate you having me. It's been really a joy.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And as Hillary said, so many of us during perimenopause feel invisible, we feel lost, we don't feel heard. And that is why it is so important to have a sense of togetherness, a sense of community, so that you do feel seen and you do feel heard. And that is what I hope I can provide you with this podcast. And I also know with my upcoming program, that's going to be such a big part of it. I'll put all of Hillary's details in the show notes. And if you're interested in getting a weekly email from me, you can come and subscribe to my email list. Now, there are various ways you can do that. The best way really is to go over to my website, which is pollywarren.com, or you can go to my bio on my Instagram, which is at pollywarrencoaching. And you can either sign up for a perimenopause symptom tracker, which is a nice, easy, straightforward way where you can see which symptoms you have and then track them to see whether they've got better or got worse. Or there's a quiz you can take to find out how ready you are for perimenopause, which is a fun way to do it. It's only 2 minutes. Or I've got 50 very, very easy top kind of recommendations you can do today, sort of healthy habits to help you have a positive perimenopause. And all of those, you just need to fill in your details. You'll be sent whatever it is you sign up for, and then you will be on my email list. And really what I do is I send a weekly email with some of my